Hey everybody, KMO here with another Out of My Head video, and I'm going to return to the topic of universal basic income and deflation. First, a graphic. Here's something that I said in a recent video, but here's a graphic to demonstrate. Dan, who I'll read a much longer comment from him in a minute, he wrote to ask if it's possible to hail an Uber here in Bellows Falls. So I have the Uber app on my phone. I've hailed 3 Uber rides in my entire life, 1 in Los Angeles, 2 in Dallas, Texas. And so here I've tried it in Bellows Falls. And I asked for an Uber ride to take me a half hour south to Brattleboro, Vermont, which is the closest multiplex, the closest movie theater with multiple screens. We have a movie theater here in Bellows Falls, but there's only the one screen. And a lot of times, they show movies that I have no interest in. Like right now, Aladdin is showing. And Godzilla is going to open in a few days anyway. And I want to go see that. So I figure the closest place would be Brattleboro. So I asked Uber, hey, I need a ride down to Brattleboro. And what did it tell me? Well, it told me a couple things. One, it's going to cost you $80. $80 to get down there and back. Throw in a movie ticket and maybe a drink, and I'm paying $100 to go see a movie. Or I could walk to the theater here in Bellows Falls. Tickets are $5. Secondly, look down at the bottom there. That is the app laughing at me. You want an Uber ride in Bellows Falls, Vermont? Ha! As if. So, now I'm going to read a longer and very good message from Dan. Dan, who is engaging with me on the topic of deflation and universal basic income. Dan writes, thanks for the link to the Khan Academy video on deflationary spiral, but that explanation is academic to the point of banality. Yeah, it is. I mean, Khan Academy, I think, it's a great resource because it's free, but yeah, it's the perspective is going to be very mainstream and very safe of just anything they have to say. But, if what you're studying is mathematics or computer coding, safe and mainstream is fine. Government and central bank manipulations through quantitative easing, wars, tariffs, support for some industries, and oil price manipulation influence markets and capital too much to make that explanation very powerful. I will go back and listen to your Nicole Foss interviews again. I've forgotten what she said about deflation there. Well, I just went back through the C-Realm podcast archive looking for those conversations with Nicole Foss, and they're gone. I had to move the C-Realm podcast from a place where it was being hosted for free to a place where I had to pay for the hosting, and to pay for the hosting, I had to take an axe to a huge portion of, the back catalog. And it's a real pain in the ass to try to put that stuff back up. It's many, like hundreds of hours of work to reconstruct, that archive. So, many hundreds of episodes will remain lost until, people like me have AI tools at their disposal who can go and do hundreds of hours of human labor in an instant for free, basically. Dan continues, in my comment on Yang and UBI, I said that I wasn't convinced that deflation was a bad thing, and I'm still not. Well, let me just reiterate. Yes, low prices feel good in the moment, but why are they low? They're low because of demand destruction. Basically, people can't afford to buy the things they used to buy at higher prices, so, the response of sellers is to lower prices. It's like a hit of heroin. It feels great in the moment, but why are you doing it? Why are you in this situation where you are numbing your pain with something which is clearly destructive? Dan continues, I'm not opposed to UBI proposals either. I think deflation would be helpful for the environment and some social ills, and I think UBI would be an inflationary cushion in the process. Yes, UBI could, and I did a video about this, it could offset the negative effects of deflation, depending on how it's implemented, of course. You can do it well, you can do it in a way that is easy and satisfies particular vested interests and is completely ineffectual or even worse, destructive. Dan continues, I agree with you, KMO. Let's try UBI, whether the economy or tech is in inflation or deflation. If it could lift people off the bottom and be a buffer against poverty and despair, I'm all for it. Well, here's the thing. I don't think it will lift anybody off the bottom. I think it will keep a lot of people at the bottom. And I don't see it as any sort of remedy to despair in any other way than heroin or television or, whatever distraction. Social media buffers people from despair. It distracts them from the things that would cause despair if they were to look at squarely in the face. But again, this is a destructive sort of feel-good measure, I think. It would also be a great way to promote deflation. We've covered that. Some people where you and I live could do and ultimately be happier and healthier with less. I personally can make choices about what I want or need, and I choose to lead a simple life. If many choose to live in a simpler way, we would trigger a deflationary spiral because no matter how cheap smartphones, for example, might become, they would not be a valued commodity, no matter how much money we had. Well, this goes back to something that permaculture co-founder or co-creator David Holmgren wrote a few years back. He said, let's crash the world economy by basically opting out of a consumptive lifestyle. Let's stop buying things so that the economy fails and all of the the negative climate effects that a consumer-based economy run on fossil fuels globally is causing. This is a sort of accelerationist perspective. It's, things are bad, let's make them worse in the near term so that we hasten the process of getting to a point where we actually make some fundamental, substantial change. And, accelerationism is a whole other topic. In some ways, I'm sympathetic to that point of view, and in other ways, it just seems kind of nutty. But I'm going to come to a UBI parallel to accelerationism in just a minute. In that economy, employment would be lost, but the shock would be softened by having a UBI cushion to fall back on until something hopefully more satisfying, since most people don't like their jobs anyway, comes along. Well, I agree that we should implement UBI, but not for the reasons that you're describing. I think we need to implement it just to demonstrate that it's not going to work. Until we demonstrate that it's not going to work, until we, as long as we keep putting it off, as long as there are people saying, hey, here's a possible solution to our dilemma, this is going to save our bacon, we need to do it, and other people are saying, no, we can't do it, we can't give money to undeserving poor people, we're stuck in this place where we haven't demonstrated to ourselves that UBI isn't going to work. UBI is an incredibly conservative idea. It is this idea that we can keep the current economic system with just this little tweak. We're going to give people the money they need to keep buying things, which is going to keep this consumer-based economy afloat. Even though there aren't jobs for everybody. But we're not really going to give them enough to live on. The basic UBI proposal that people, they start off with is $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year. Suppose somebody had been making $50,000 a year and they had benefits. They had medical insurance, they had time off, they had retirement benefits, which really boosted the value of their job up to around $80,000 a year. They lose that job, they go and they get a shittier job that doesn't have the benefits, it pays a lot less, it doesn't have the regular hours, it doesn't have all the things, that make a decent job worth keeping. They're not unemployed, but now say they're making $25,000 a year, you give them UBI, they've got $35,000 a year. Yeah, that's more than I make now. That would be, throw another 12 grand on top of my current annual income and it would help. But, compared to somebody who was making $80,000, their paycheck only said $50,000, but if you add in the value of the benefits, it was really around $80,000. And you give them a new way to live, which is extreme precarity, disposability as an unskilled worker where previously you had been skilled, and, a little supplement on top, you've still basically reduced somebody by more than half. And if you do that to the entire, not the entire, it's not going to happen. See, this is a problem. The consequences of the economic transition that we are in, this transition which is driven by machine learning and automation, as well as outsourcing and a host of other things, it doesn't hit everybody at once. And the people that it hits first tend to be the ones who are not in a position to articulate, why what's happening to them is really shitty, not just for them, but for the prospects for our society as a whole. And the people who are still doing well, many of them are doing much better than they've ever done before, and they're working hard. So they have this sense that, look, I'm working hard and I'm doing well. This other person is not doing well. Clearly, they're either not working very hard or they've made stupid choices in life and they deserve the poverty that they're wallowing in now. And the people who are wallowing in that poverty, they tend to accept these arguments and they say, yes, this is all my fault. I really should have done something differently when I was 15 years old, when I was 14, when I was 13, when I was 8. I should have made better choices so that I could have gotten in, to that magnate middle school and really made something of myself. That's ridiculous. That's why Andrew Yang's book is called The War on Normal People. Not everybody in this society can be a coder. Not everybody in this society can be a computer science, researcher. Not everybody in this society can get one of those pristine, plum jobs, which make up about 8% of the job market. You can't retrain 80% of the people in the workforce who have been displaced to do the work that 8% are doing now. And that 8% is going to shrink because the jobs which are the most easily automated are the ones which involve routine cognitive tasks. So this is coming back to my major refrain. The idea that we're going to educate our way out of this process is ridiculous. That's not going to happen. Andrew Yang and I are exactly on the same page on that score. I completely agree with him on that. We're not going to retrain a huge swath of the population to do the work that a tiny percentage is doing now. It just doesn't work that way. But I agree we should move towards universal basic income because basically I see, what Yang calls the great, what does he call it? The great displacement. Basically, people used to generate the economic value in the society, and increasingly that value generation is being automated. It is being done by intelligent but unconscious machines. And that process is only going to continue and accelerate. And right now, I see coming to grips with the great displacement as akin to coming to grips with your impending death. So we move to the Kubler-Ross model. Right now, at a societal level, we are at the denial stage. Capitalism is great. Capitalism creates wealth and shares it according to meritocratic principles. The people who are creating value are becoming, wealthy, they're getting richly rewarded, and everybody else, they either need to figure out a way to interface with this economy and create value, or they just need to crawl away and die. And UBI, is basically their ticket to crawling away and just, resigning themselves to a life of economic irrelevance for however long they can live, without a sense of purpose. Andrew Yang and people who are clamoring for UBI are at the bargaining stage. They're further along, in coming to grips with the realization that the current economic system, super hypercharged by artificial intelligence and machine learning and massive surveillance to collect data to train the algorithms, this process is only going to accelerate the hyper stratification of our society. More and more people are going to be falling into, they're going to be falling on the wrong side of the growing divide between the haves and the have-nots. And UBI, I don't think it's going to work, but I think we need to try it just to show ourselves that it's not going to work so that we can move past the bargaining stage and come closer to accepting that we really do need to change our economic system at a very fundamental level. Unfortunately, between bargaining and acceptance is depression. And we know what depression looks like at the civilizational scale. That's why the Great Depression was called the Great Depression. Yes, economic activity was depressed, but so was the national psyche. So was our spirit. And I think that there is another Great Depression coming, but it's not going to hit everybody at once. And the people who aren't experiencing it are not going to feel much sympathy for the people who are, and to the degree that they do feel sympathy, they're going to propose things like UBI, which is, basically just digging in the fingernails into that rock face with more emphasis to, avoid falling, but we're going to fall. And UBI really, I think, will just extend our pain. But we have to do it to get at least to the bargaining stage, because most of us are still in denial or anger. All right, that is all. Talk to you again tomorrow.